Fisker ma a charstion is falchef orv ule. Good evening, friends, and welcome to the Saltires, Scotland's National Book Awards 2024. Whether you're joining us in person tonight or on our live stream, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to Central Hall, this glorious Art Nouveau gem in the centre of Edinburgh. My name is Cynioch MacLeod, although on the page and on the screen you might know me as the Hebridean Baker, Scotland's answer to Nigella Lawson. Who wrote this script? Who wrote this script? I was born and raised in a Gaelic-speaking household on the beautiful island of Lewis, the furthest north of the Outer Hebrides. Today, I'm published by Black and White right here in Edinburgh, meaning I know firsthand how hard Scotland's writers and publishers work to take our stories across the globe. As a baker and a cookbook author, Scotland's top cookbook author, I'm a great believer in breaking bread and enjoying a dram together to share our successes. And I'm delighted to be your host for this evening as we raise a glass to the cream of Scotland's literary talent. Now, we'd love you to share the excitement of the night on your socials. So take lots of photos. Did you get that one? Do you need me to do that again? I won't do it again. I'll do it later. But please use the hashtag Saltire Book Awards, all one word, Saltire Book Awards. So even though I'm telling you to use your phone, would you mind putting it on silent? Just remember to do that before we begin. Now, before we do get down to business tonight, I want to tell you a little bit about the heritage of the Saltires for maybe some of you who don't know. The awards take their name from the Saltire Society, which has championed Scottish culture on the domestic and international scene for nearly 90 years. When the society was founded, Scotland was a very, very different place. It had just weathered the Great War and economic struggles. There was no parliament, no national theatre, no Scottish orchestra, and no broadcasting from Scotland as a nation. On the horizon was another global conflict, and there were fears that our unique culture stood on the brink of ruin. Even our national cuisine was in danger of falling into undeserved oblivion, to quote cookbook author and my hero, F. Marion McNeill, who was fighting back on that front and later joined in our efforts by the Society. And look, there's been a lot of progress and a lot to celebrate today, but the Saltire Society believes the need remains for an independent organization to speak for Scotland's culture when it may be endangered, misunderstood, or neglected. And when we can, to celebrate the successes as we do tonight. Amen to that. Now, one of the first things the Society did was to create a book award. And at the time, which I think was in the kind of 1930s, they did it because they thought some of the proud traditions of publishing in Scotland had declined, and our literature wasn't being taught to our people, and certainly not in our universities. So in 1937, the first book of the year was announced. The recipient was Neil Gunn for Highland River. It's a book about renewal through nature. Its protagonist, Ken, follows the Dunbeath River to its source, rediscovering his boyhood joy in the nature and the senses after a life away from the land and a spell in the trenches of the First World War. Now, the book awards were interrupted by the Second World War, but the roll call of later awardees include many further icons of Scottish literature. To name just a few, Edwin Muir, Alistair Gray, Edwin Morgan, Tom Leonard, Norman McCaig, Muriel Spark, Soherla McElyehin, Liz Lochhead, Alan Warner, James Robertson, Kate Atkinson, John Burnside, A.L. Kennedy, James Kellman, Kathleen Jamie, and many, many more. And tonight, we are looking forward to adding more names to this incredible roll of honor. There's going to be people in this room tonight that we're going to be talking about for years and years in the future. Isn't that exciting? It might be you. It might be you. So, without further ado, and appropriately, I hope you agree, we're going to begin tonight's official proceedings with the award of the prize of First Book of the Year 2024. This considers debuts in fiction, non-fiction, and poetry, and the category is sponsored by Creative Scotland, the public body that supports culture and creativity in Scotland as a development organisation, a funder, and an advocate. We extend our sincere thanks to them for their support of this vital category. Now, I am delighted to say that we have Louise Welsh with us to present this award and to share some thoughts on why it is so important to recognise debut work. Louise is a former winner of the First Book of the Year with The Cutting Room back in 2002, which she followed with a series of very fine novels indeed. Please welcome Louise Welsh.
Thank you, Conor. I hope you're all impressed that I got to the stage without knocking that over. Those of you in the virtual world won't know what I'm talking about, but it would have been quite spectacular. Oh, thank you so much, Conor. And it really is a huge pleasure and a huge honour to be able to present the First Book Awards of 2024. And I really endorse everything that's just been said about the Saltires Society. A society that really has done a lot to preserve, but not simply preserve, to encourage and innovate culture and diversity on the Scottish and the international literary scene. First books are special. We write them with no guarantees. We write them in the dark and we feel our way forward, unsure of the obstacles in our way. And when we finally step into the light with our published book clutched in our hand, it can feel really dazzling. It can feel disorientating. Every writer, the long and the shortlisted for these awards, is a new and exciting voice that we haven't encountered before. They're stepping from the wings, barely known to readers, booksellers, librarians, but potentially about to become well-known forces on the literary stage. And the Saltire Awards are recognition of outstanding work, an encouragement for these debut writers to go on and produce more. And I know that's horrifying, actually, because when you produce your first book, people say, "What are you going to do next?" You think, well, I've just done this. But we need people to write more. We need these new voices to help us see the world and our country as it is and how it might be. We need these fresh visions and reminders of things past, histories that might have been lost or neglected. We need them to entertain, to provoke, and to challenge us. And we need them to have the confidence to keep on surprising us. One of the judges said of this shortlist, "We found it impossible to predict what the writer's next work might be." And that is a testament to the skill and the freshness of these voices. We're here to celebrate the achievement of all of these writers, each of whom has spent long, long hours at their desks, sometimes wondering if they would ever bring their vision to fruition, and who today are being recognised by Scotland's National Book Awards, one of the oldest literary prizes in the UK. So congratulations to everybody on the shortlist. And we're now going to watch a short video which will tell us more about the shortlisted books.
Fragile Animals, Genevieve Jagger. A sexual relationship with a vampire forces an ex-Catholic woman to confront her past in a visceral, vivid, and lyrical debut. Remember, Remember, El Mahri. A queer, feminist retelling of the Gunpowder Plot, this is a passionate, atmospheric debut with heart and ambition. The Old Haunts, Alan Radcliffe. This novella is a quiet and poetic exploration of grief and sexuality, a subtle, confident debut. Night Train to Odessa, Jen Stout. Enthralling, tender, and often beautiful, this memoir eschews drama for quiet detail to tell the story of the human experience of war. The Department of Work and Pensions assesses a jade fish, Nuala Watt. Wit and humour meet serious and important subject matter in this intriguing, subversive and original poetry debut.
So I've been asked several times since I walked through the door of the Central Hall, do you know who won? And the answer is no. And neither do they. So I'm just going to put this mic down and open the golden envelope. And the winner is Jen Stout for Night Train to Odessa, published by Berlin. Jen, would you like to join us on the stage?
I'm very surprised and I'm really, really proud. This means so much. This is a very, very profoundly Scottish book. We don't have enough foreign correspondence. We have almost no foreign correspondence left in Scotland. And we don't have enough low-income writers and working-class writers. And everything that I did in Ukraine and in Russia and in writing this book is because of other people and their help. And I always want to stress that, particularly the people in Ukraine who showed me so much kindness and help all of the time. But so many people meant that I could hold up this book, and I still find it surreal. And I say, God, did I write this? Was that actually me? But it's because of other people. It's because of Edward Crossan sitting there, my editor, and because of Jenny Brown, I don't know where she is, who just encouraged me so much and helped so much. And because of Christopher Silver, my friend, who proofread every single night and made the book readable, honestly. And everybody at Berlin, I was looking at the last sort of 6 months since publication. I think I've done like 20 or 25 events, and they've just gone to the ends of the earth to make all this happen. And it really, really matters because I need to explain to people the whole point of the book is please understand what's happening in Ukraine. Please, understand that this could be us. And it's not a distant place. It's not far away. It really, really matters. And I would just end by saying there's a woman in my book, Victoria Amelina. It's sheer luck, arbitrary chance that the missile hit the Kramatorsk pizza restaurant when she was there and not the time that I was there a couple of months before. And she died. And she was a wonderful friend and a brilliant writer and a sort of visionary, beautiful person and incredibly funny. Her book is coming out. She had written enough of it by the time that she died that her book will come out in February. So please do read it. Her name was Victoria Amelina. And I just want to say thank you so much. This is extraordinary, and thank you.
So, you two can stand there. Please, you take that, and you two stand there first. Can I shimmy in? Come on in. Thank you so much. Give Jen a big cheer. Thank you so, so much indeed. Thank you, Louise. Congratulations, Jen. I'm just going to apologize now for looking like Gandalf in all the photos with the winners. And love that I even just have a small connection with that storyline. My first ever job, I moved from the Isle of Lewis to Moscow when I was 19 for my first job, working as a reporter for the Moscow Times. And you know, it really shaped my story and life, and isn't it an amazing experience for it to do that again for other people? So congratulations, Jen, for that award. We're moving on to our second of the night. Scotland has a long tradition of academic and professional publishing, and our next award is for the Research Book of the Year 2024. In this category, I am especially delighted that the Gaelic language features as well. Sin Seo Féin. You'll hear more about that in a moment. But tonight, I'm delighted to say that we have Professor Graham Watt with us to present this award and to tell us a little bit about the importance of research. Now, he has very kindly stepped in. Sadly, Professor Jan Clarkson is unwell, but we are delighted he can join us tonight. So please welcome to the stage Professor Graham Watt. Hello, Graham.
Thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity. I was very lucky some years ago to get a Fletcher of Saltoun Award. A wonderful thing to get, much more satisfying and pleasurable than a UK gong. And you probably know the quote from Fletcher of Saltoun on the wall of the Scottish Parliament: "If a man were permitted to make all the ballads, he need not care who should make the laws of a nation." And tonight's authors for the Research Book Award, I think, have something in common with the balladeers, keeping their stories alive. My late uncle, Donald Watt, was Professor of Medieval History at St Andrews, probably best known for editing the 9-volume 1998 translation of the Scotichronicon, the History for Scots by Walter Bauer, the Abbot of Inchholm. But he also compiled, my uncle, a book entitled A Biographical Dictionary of Scottish Graduates to AD 1410. That wasn't 2:10 in the afternoon, it was 1410. And the significance was that 1410 was the date of the first Scottish university, after which people didn't have to travel abroad. And I used to think, well, what's the use of that? Until I was scolded by John Purser, author of the book Scotland's Music, who'd found this biographical dictionary of Scottish graduates to 1410 invaluable when working out the identity of who'd written the many medieval music manuscripts in the National Library of Scotland. So I was put in my place, firmly. The stated aim of that dictionary was to rescue from oblivion the university graduate class in medieval Scotland, all 1,100 of them, all of them men. And in the same way, I think tonight's authors for the Research Book Prize have rescued from oblivion a fascinating range of subjects, not only researching their sources, exploring deep and wide, but also putting it all together like a jigsaw, sufficient to give a clear view of their subject and conveying with clarity and rigor the truthfulness and trustworthiness of their accounts. Such books tell us who we are and where we've come from, contributing to the national treasure chest. So we thank them all, and we thank their publishers, keeping these important parts of Scotland's story alive.
Well, thank you so much, Graham. Now we're going to see the shortlist of books.
Sáirle mach go lein na bhríar an hain, madi sin a chaimbal, Johnny Gail is Isabel nicht go lein. Leor taringach is persante, a torch co hickse is tuchtse, ed barste va kutramach, de gaan an hain is stage and doel voord. England's Insular Imagining, Lorna Hudson. A highly developed volume with a strong vision, drawing on literary and historic sources and narratives, and clear on the importance of the scholarship and the questions it asks. The Afterlife of Mary, Queen of Scots, Stephen J. Reid. A highly scholarly, coherent edited volume on the material, literary, digital and cultural afterlives of Mary. Its strong rationale ensures it stands out in a crowded field, and much of what it has to say is new. Salt, Scotland's newest, oldest industry, Christopher A. Whatley, Joanna Hambley. This book addresses neglect of Scotland's salt industry as an area of study, drawing on interdisciplinary sources and community historians and archaeologists, with astonishing chronological range. Scotland's Royal Women and European Literary Culture, 1424 to 1587, Emily Wingfield. A highly scholarly, research-rich and well-written book, pan-European and cutting across literary, gender and religious history. It should change our thinking on the role of women in European literary cultures.
And the winner is Lorna Hudson.
Now, unfortunately, Lorna is not able to be with us tonight, but her prize will wing its way to Oxford with a lovely photo of me and Graham celebrating. Now, what more do you want when you win a big award like that? So as we walk up, can you give her a big cheer as we get this photograph? Fantastic, thanks so much. I'll keep that, it's very good. I've never won one of these before, that's great. Thank you so much, Graham, and congratulations again to Lorna. I know that award will look lovely on your mantelpiece in Oxford. Now, before we proceed to our next awards, I will be joined on stage by Ian Brown, Vice Convener of the Saltire Society, who's going to say a few words about a particularly special facet of this year's awards. Please welcome Ian Brown.
Song about the limp. Teach me to come climbing hills in Perthshire. We began tonight by...
I'll just give you the microphone here, there, so you can do that. Thank you, sir.
We began tonight by awarding the first book of the year, 2024. As we celebrate emerging talent, we need also, I think, to remember that each year there will also be last books written in some coming from retirements, often not, but writers not always being retiring types, sadly also because people have gone and left us and died. This year we recognise the work of 3 writers who are much missed. On our non-fiction shortlist is Carl McDougall for his memoir, Already Too Late. Carl published his first novel in Stone Over Water in his mid-40s after having written short stories and retellings of folklore. That move marked the arrival of a major figure in Scottish letters. Much valued member of the Saltires Society and a friend to many in this room tonight. Carol died in 2023. On our poetry long list is Innes Du McNichol. It's perhaps best known as one of the iconic voices of Scottish Gaelic in the modern day, but he wrote not only in Gaelic, but in Scots and English, and beyond is an edition of his English language poetry. Innes began this edition with the support of the poet Colin Bramwell, and it was finished after his death in late 22 by Colin and Innes's wife, Gerda Stevenson, a fine poet, Gerda in her own right. Many of you will have known Innes, who was the kindest of men and mentors, with a love of collaboration, and among his many other accolades was the Saltire Society Fletcher of Saltire Award. And on our poetry shortlist, too, is John Burnside with Ruin Blossom. And like Carl and Innes's works, the collection was published in John's lifetime, and given he was just 69, perhaps we expected a lot more. He was a towering voice of Scottish literature and a tremendous, valued mentor and friend to many of whom are here. He was twice winner of our Book of the Year, among his many major accolades. Our team is working its way, I hope, says he. Are we moving round? Okay. We hope you'll eventually have in front of you a small token in remembrance of these 3 wonderful writers. And will you join us when our small token arrives? We'll find a moment when we can raise a glass to these absent friends. Thank you. I got one. Cheers.
Mila Tank, Ian, thank you so much, Ian, for that. Thank you. Moving on, after that, we are now going to move to our next category of the evening, the non-fiction Book of the Year 2024. And I'm delighted to welcome to the stage a speaker I'm sure you all know. His entire career has been dedicated to ensuring we understand what is happening in the world, including places of conflict and crisis. He recently completed his tenure as chair of the Edinburgh International Book Festival, but we know he will continue to champion writers in everything that he does. A Harston, please welcome Alan Little.
Thank you so much. Is this the right microphone? Yes. It's a delight and a privilege to be here among so many cherished friends and at this, one of the great cultural events of the calendar. This category, I've been engaged, as many of you have, with the written word from the age of 5. First as a lover of story and fantasy, then increasingly as a reader beguiled by the beauty and powers of language. And for the last 40 years as a jobbing journalist trying to use that language to convey truths that will engage and inspire and sometimes, I hope, disturb the reader or listener or viewer. The written word in non-fiction gives us access to the knowledge of the ages. It is the repository of the accumulated wisdom and experience of generations of thinking human beings. It breeds in us a spirit of inquiry. It lets us communicate with our fellow human beings, not just across countries, continents, and generations, but across centuries. It puts us into the minds of men and women who lived their lives before we were born, shows us the world as it seemed to them. It binds us in a shared humanity. I love fiction, but sustained, prolonged non-fiction, the ability to engage a reader without many of the devices available to the novelist, is an art form that holds a special fascination for me. There has not been a period in my lifetime when it has seemed to me more important than it is now for us to interrogate the world around us, to understand the world as it seems to others, to value the richness that we inherit from those who came before us, and appreciate the richness and the challenges that we bequeath to those who will come after us. Sustained, serious, engrossing non-fiction is part of that interrogation. My working life as a journalist has been predicated on the conviction that there is something called the truth, and that it's knowable and verifiable. The reporter's job is to establish a set of truths, a shared public reality, the interpretation of which we can then dispute and challenge. But that idea that there is something called the truth that we can all acknowledge is under sustained attack. Now there are powerful people not just in the world's autocracies, but more menacingly in some of the most securely entrenched democracies, for whom the truth is whatever they say it is. Serious, engaging, compelling non-fiction can be one of the islands on which a shared public reality can survive and fight back. That's why it's such a privilege for me to stand here and announce this award. Here are the nominees.
Thunderclap. Laura Cumming. Arresting, creative and rich, skillfully weaving authoritative interpretations of Dutch art with touching Scottish memoir. The Unfamiliar, a queer motherhood memoir, Kirsty Logan. A powerful, punchy and provocative memoir for our time. Already Too Late, Carl McDougall. A memoir set in post-war Scotland about community and children's agency. It reads like fiction with affecting evocations of place and situations. Oh Brother, John Niven. A cracking memoir with a dynamic momentum that interrogates sibling love and intimacy, nature and nurture with a blazing soundtrack. Ian Fleming, The Complete Man, Nicholas Shakespeare. A gloriously elegant and charming memoir and a rich account of the man and his time.
I'm delighted to announce that the winner of the non-fiction book of the year is Laura Cumming for Thunderclap.
Now, sadly, Laura has had a wee bit of a last-minute emergency, but fingers crossed, she is going to be joining us by Zoom. There she is. Give her a big cheer. Laura, do you want to say a few words?
I do. Thank you so very much. I am so touched and grateful. I wish I had been with you all there in person right now. It's a spot and a place and a building that I know very well. A lot of formative memories in my life around that area. Goldberg's department store, which some of you may recall, with the milkshakes, and my school disco, Edinburgh Festival productions in the theatres and so on. And above all, of course, the College of Art, where my parents first met and where my father taught for many decades. We used to take the 23 bus up to the college from the 4th to collect him in the evening, and that great red granite building seemed to me as vast as the Grand Canyon when I was a child. I'm very moved that this book should receive this award in this place. I particularly feel it keenly listening to Alan speaking. Many great writers have won this prize for creating fiction and poetry. And I, alas, don't have that gift. I am absolutely dedicated to truth. It's the one thing I most want to know. It's the thing I most want to pursue. I want as much truth as I can have. And writers who have won the non-fiction award, won this award in the past. In fact, so many of them are people that I read when I was growing up. I'm thinking specifically of James Buchan and Tom Nairn and Neil Acheson, all of them journalists, as I am too. But I am especially grateful because this book, the heart of this book is my father. His start in life in Dunfermline in Fife, and his years on the island of Lewis, and all of his life here in the city in Edinburgh. He was once or twice asked to go and work in London, and he stayed in Edinburgh, and we always wondered what would have happened to him. And I know that what he had in Edinburgh was freedom that he would never have had otherwise. And so they are all at the heart of this book. And I am especially grateful and very, very proud that the Saltires Society, of all people, noticed this book in the first place, in fact, because it's ostensibly masquerading as a book about Dutch art, specifically Dutch Golden Age art, and my love of it, which was first seen, of course, in this city in Edinburgh. Rembrandt, I'm thinking particularly of on the Mand. But into this book I smuggled, and I hoped very secretively, so secretively that people in the publishing world wouldn't immediately notice, the life and the mind and the eyes of the artist I knew best, and that person was my father, the Scottish painter, James Thumb. So immense thanks to you for noticing that, and for your instinctual sense that this is indeed a Scottish book, with, I hope, a true sense of this city and of this culture, and of all the ways that they taught me to use my eyes and to see and thus to think. And though I am, alas, stuck in London, my heart is very much with you there in Edinburgh, and specifically in Tollcross. Thank you so much.
Good news, Laura. You're also getting a lovely photo of myself and Alan with your award. That when we come round to visit, we hope it'll be on your mantelpiece next week. But give Laura a big cheer, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alan, and congratulations, Laura. So we are here for the Saltires tonight, Scotland's National Book Awards of 2024 here at Central Hall. A reminder that Waterstones are here with the books tonight, so if you do want to collect the books, they're here, and with the authors, you might even get them signed as well, maybe even a cookbook, which are very good for Christmas presents, signed as well. So we turn now to a very, very special award, recognizing the lifetime contribution of a writer to Scottish literature and to the literature sector as well. So I'd like you to give them a big cheer. Please welcome to the stage Susan Garnsworthy and Scott Hames. Has he left you, Susan?
He's going to join me when I've done my bit.
Okay, fine. Well, you go first then, Susan.
So, good evening, everyone. Delighted to be here in Central Hall. Since 2019, the Saltires Society has made a special award for lifetime achievement at the National Book Awards. This award celebrates individuals who are Scottish by birth or residency and who've made a meaningful creative contribution to the world of literature. Individuals are nominated for their professional and their personal endeavours and accomplishments. The inaugural winner of the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2019 was Alistair Gray, and last year the winner was Liz Lockhead. In making the award, we seek nominations from our Book Award judges and from across the literature sector, and we are grateful to all of you who took the time to nominate individuals and to tell us so eloquently why their work had been important to you. I'm very pleased to tell you that this year's award goes to James Kelman. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say that James Kelman is unable to join us tonight. He had hoped to Zoom in, but circumstances have conspired against us. So he sends his thanks to the Society and to the publishers, writers, and others who nominated him. Now, we have asked Scott Hames to speak to James Kelman's work and career, and I'll leave you in his capable hands. So first, though, can I ask you to show your appreciation for James Kelman?
Thanks very much. James Kelman published his first book of stories in 1973 at the Pucker Brush Press in Orono, Maine. His writing needs almost no introduction to this audience, which is just as well because there is half a century to cover. He was born in Glasgow in 1946 and left school at the earliest opportunity, aged 15. His family briefly emigrated to California in 1963. And on returning to Scotland, he worked in a variety of factory and labouring jobs when he began writing aged 21. He is writing still and has published 5 books in the past 3 years, including a collection of essays co-authored with Noam Chomsky, with another book due in 2025. I won't try to mention all his works, all his awards, all his accolades, or his extraordinary impact on the possibilities of his art form in this country. It will suffice to say that post-war Scottish fiction can be neatly divided into before and after James Kelman. The key breakthroughs were the story collection Not Not While the Gyro and the novel The Bus Conductor Hines, both published by the tiny fledgling Polygon Press here in Edinburgh in 1983 and 84. Kelman's approach to Glasgow language and innovative narrative style was so energizing to the next generation of Scottish writers, it is difficult to imagine the work of Janice Galloway, Irvin Welsh, A.L. Kennedy, or Alan Warner without it. That influence continues and is richly apparent in the work of novelists as different as Kirsty Gunn and Douglas Stewart, who puts it simply, James Kelman changed my life. There are many readers who could say the same. Even Kelman's detractors and those allergic to his style or to his politics have had to reckon with his militant and inescapable example. He is a true essential of modern Scottish prose, and yet to treat Kelman as the unofficial captain of Team Scottish Lit is slightly misleading. His work is fundamentally about the alienated individual, and his characters are typically focused on surviving the next hour while remaining alive to all its dizzying and distressing possibilities. The adventure and torment of the living moment is at the core of his art, which is why it speaks to readers far beyond Scotland. Kelman's political commitments, socialist, anarchist, anti-racist, have been nearly as influential as his fiction and have profoundly shaped literary debate in Scotland. This does not make him a straightforward patriot. See, when you come to think about it, he didn't really like Scotland. It was his country, okay, but that didn't mean you had to like it. So says Sammy, the hero of How Late It Was, How Late, which won the Booker Prize of 1994. There is nothing uncritical in Kelman's Scottishness or in that of his great departed friends, Tom Leonard and Alistair Gray. In novels such as A Disaffection and Kieran Smith Boy, the skepticism of the disenchanted individual cannot be separated from the warmer songs of peoplehood, but must somehow be voiced within them. There is something incongruous about James Kelman and the ambience of the Literary Prize ceremony, but I am very pleased he has accepted this honor. When I wrote to congratulate him earlier this week, his reply was brief. My work exists with or without any award, reward, or prize. I regard the award as an acknowledgement of my work, a verification that it does, after all, exist. And very glad we are too. There are many thousands of people around the world whose lives would be very different had this magnificent writer never taken the trouble and embraced the adventure of existing. Thanks, Jim, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. Again, what a treat for James to get a photo of the three of us. So please do come up. Matt, if you come in the middle. There we go. Thank you so much. And give them a big cheer to Susan and Scott. Thank you so, so much indeed. Well, that brings us to the end of the first half of the proceedings. I know you're all desperate for a gossip with the person beside you at the table. I'm going to be back in about 10 minutes' time. But for now, I'll invite you to refresh your glasses and sit back and relax. While you do so, we're going to hear from an amazing new emerging artist whose work fuses sounds from the world around us with harp, piano, and a big spoonful of pure magic. Please welcome Deborah Shaw, also known as Aurora Engine.
Thank you so much for having me along tonight to play at the Saltires Book Awards. I'm pretty sure I'm going to spend most of my money in the shop afterwards, hearing about some fantastic books. I'm going to play you a few of my new compositions, and this first one is called I Think I Have Just Shot My Horse.
I just did not want it.
so soft yet so strong and so warm. And I want my horse to be healthy again. La 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 la. Thank you very much. Thank you. This next song is for anyone who had an imaginary friend when they were growing up. This is a song about my own imaginary friend. And it's about that imaginary friend coming alive. It's called Kenia. Would you like to step into this world I've been making of? Kenia, would you like to step into this den in a far-off land? We could dye our hair blue, pastel sorbet for two, weaving and preening ligaments and ties. And we could have a secret knock and live on sherbet lemon drops, running, stampeding, howling in the dark. Huddle closely, nest forever. I'll put my hand in your hair. Kenia, would you like to step out of my head for a little while? Kenia, would you like to be flesh and blood? Huddle closely, nest forever, your tiny hands in mine. Are you ready to cross over? 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 Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm going to play one last song for you tonight. And this is a song that was inspired by a book. And that book was called The Miniaturist. I'm sure many of you read it. And it's about feeling small. And it's about how as women we often feel small. And it's about imagining ourselves just growing a little bit more. Tiny house, tiny feet, a tiny little hairbrush for keeping neat. A tiny house, a tiny bed, a tiny little room to keep it real. I've been working on my miniature self. I've been cutting around my edge. I've been lacquering my face, keeping everything firmly in place. I've been working on my miniature self. I've been trying so hard to keep them small, small. With these tired hands, I daily slice to cut her back again, and I sculpt the wood against its grid. I carve and carve and carve again. I've been working on my miniature self. I've been cutting around my edge. I've been lacquering my face, keeping everything firmly in place. I've been working on my miniature self. I've been trying so hard to keep things small, small, Just how big do you think she can get? Just how big do you think she can get? I've been working on my miniature self. I've been cutting around my edge. I've been lacquering my face, keeping everything firmly in place. Just how big do you think she can get? Just how big do you think she can get? Small, small. I've been jumping on my miniature self. I've been cutting around my edge. I've been lacquering my face, putting everything in place. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aurora Engine. Thank you so much for having me.
So much, Aurora. What a treat. Thank you so, so much indeed. Give it a big cheer. Aurora. A beautiful set there from Aurora Engine. Thank you so, so much. We are back already. Please take your seats for the next award. We are back at the Saltires, Scotland's National Book Awards 2024. Again, welcome to everybody who is in the room tonight and those of you who are watching online. We are here at Central Hall in Edinburgh, and it's been a real treat so far, and I know there's still plenty more to come. So we're going to move now to our next category of the evening, which is Poetry Book of the Year 2024. And I'm delighted to welcome to the stage a speaker who is a true champion of poetry. Many of you knew her as head of literature at Creative Scotland, and from there she has continued to champion writers as a director of Push the Boat Out, Edinburgh's award-winning poetry festival. And of course, she also champions poetry in her new-ish role as director of Edinburgh International Book Festival. I am available for next year. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Jenny Niven.
Thank you very much. Oh, that one's not on. Is it on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much. I've just got to put all this furniture down. I've got quite a lot of bits and pieces. It's quite heavy, this award. Thank you so much to the Saltires Society for inviting me to present this award and for your lovely remarks, Connor. I think this is a really important piece of our culture at this moment, honouring our amazing array of Scottish writing talent. It's really lovely to see everybody in the room tonight and to do that. I'd spent a bit of this morning, I felt like I was skiving off school a little bit. This is how much of a dork I am, but I felt like I was skiving. I went to the National Library and I was at the symposium they did today on the modern literary archives. And it was really wonderful, and it was quite sort of empowering and enriching and a bit lovely just to spend time thinking about the writers that have shaped our culture and why they're so important in the recent past. And it's quite exciting to think that some of the folks that we're awarding this evening are probably going to be that next generation of folks that we will honour a wee bit further down the track. It's so important that we have a poetry category as part of this glittering array of awards. You can't tell Scotland's cultural story or much of its story at all without reference to poetry. It's absolutely central. So it's really a delight to be asked to honour this amazing shortlist. And it really is a terrific shortlist. And I think it demonstrates beyond any sort of doubt just how great Scottish poetry is right now, but also how it manages to continue to reinvent itself and present something fresh and new all the time, which is why I keep coming back again and again to poetry. But we are also an outward-looking nation, and so today's Thanksgiving, so I want to just read you a little bit about what America's Poet Laureate, Ada Limon, has to say about why we should care about poetry, because she says it much more eloquently than me. This is from an event that she did at the Edinburgh International Book Festival, I think chaired by one of our shortlisted poets tonight, Marjorie Lotfy, but she said this about poetry recently. I really believe deeply that poetry can help us reclaim our humanity, and I think that we really need that right now. I think that the idea that we've become so numb, and rightly so, I think compartmentalising and numbness is partly how we survive in a world that feels like we're moving from one crisis to another without a breath in between. And I think poetry is a place where we can go to breathe, and also to recognise that we are real human animals that experience a lot of different feelings, and we're not supposed to go from ping-ponging from one trauma to the next without a moment of, what just happened? Who am I? What did we lose? Where is my grief? Where is my joy? And I think poetry makes space for all that. Paying attention to poetry that's about nature or animals can help repair our relationship to the natural world. I'm not naive enough to believe poetry can stop the climate crisis or heal humanity. I wish it could be so. But I do think it's a way of recognising who we are right now and doing it in a way that has that kind of attention, that deep attention that can feel like loving, like honouring. I'm delighted to present the shortlist for the Saltire Awards for Poetry 2024.
Quickfire, Slow Burning, Jeanette Ayachi, a collection of invitation with the reader brought along as a fellow traveller on Ayachi's journey. Ruin, Blossom, John Burnside. A powerful meditation on loss and renewal. Incisive yet open, this offers a wonderful, seamless reading experience. Mayday, Jackie Kay. A fine collection marrying the personal with the public, in places very touching and rippling with Kay's distinctive musicality. The wrong person to ask, Marjorie Lotvi, an assured collection delivering a punch in its first pages, later positing Scotland as a safe place of healing. 3 Births, Kay Patrick, a raw, unabashed collection with rich, layered and playful language and a compelling narrative. The Cat Prince and Other Poems, Michael Peterson, a powerful collection, subtle and surprising, combining playfulness with sharp focus.
And the winner of the 2024 Saltire Award for Poetry is John Burnside, Ruin Blossom.
We would love to invite Sarah Burnside, John's widow, up to the stage to accept the award.
This is one of those occasions when I'm both delighted and honoured to be here, but also deeply saddened, because of course John cannot be here with you tonight. There are lots of people to thank for Ruin Blossom. Not just John's efforts went into it, but those of his longtime editor, Robin Robertson, and all the staff at Jonathan Cape and many others too. John was someone who was fascinated by a great many different things in life, but one of his most favourite things was birds. He wasn't a bird watcher because his eyesight wasn't good enough for that, but he loved their plumage and their beautiful bird song, their sometimes bizarre courting rituals, their ability to fly. And he was particularly in awe of those species that could fly hundreds and sometimes thousands of miles to breeding grounds and feeding grounds on migration routes every year. And where we live in Fife, we're lucky enough to be visited by swallows every summer from Africa and to watch the pink-footed geese flying overhead in the autumn and the spring in those wonderful V formations that they make. And John loved those. And he said to me once that he always thought of his poetry collections as being like one of those V formations, made up of lots of individuals that he cajoled and nurtured into some kind of formation with common threads. And when they were ready to fly, he could just only sit back and watch to see what happened to them and where they landed. If he's listening at all in any capacity this evening, then I'd like to say to him that Ruin Blossom flew well and it landed in a very good place. So thank you very much for this honour. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah. Give a big cheer. May I thank Jenny. Thank you, Jenny, and thank you so much, Sarah. What an honour to hear you speak there. Before we move to our next category, we're going to pause for a few moments of reflection. No one in this room will be unaware that Scottish writing, publishing, and literary programming has weathered some pretty dark storms over recent months. And one of the Saltire Society's core purposes is to host and support responsible debate. And we think it is important to acknowledge our challenges, even as we celebrate our successes tonight. With that in mind, we've invited James Robertson, two-time winner of Scottish Book of the Year at these awards, to offer some food for thought. So please welcome James to the stage. It is. If you keep talking, it will, I promise. No?
No? Yes? I'll keep going anyway. Oh, that's it. I can hear it now. Great. It's great to be here, and I'm just really amazed at the quality and the range of the books that we've already heard about. Mary Kidd asked me if I would take this 10 minutes to just offer a few reflections on tonight, but thinking about it, trying to place it in a slightly wider context as well. It's already been mentioned by Cognac, actually, that the first winner of the Book of the Year, Saltire Book of the Year, was Neil Gunn for Highland River in 1937, a pretty auspicious start. And that was Gunn's 6th published novel, and its success enabled him to leave his job as an exciseman and become a full-time writer. The greatest novelist, in my view, that the Scottish Highlands have yet produced. Neil Gunn is less read nowadays than he was for much of the 20th century, but his writing is of such quality that I don't doubt that new readers will find him in the future. All authors come and go, sometimes in their own lifetimes, often in their afterlife. But a book written in the 1930s or, say, the 1970s cannot be like a book written in the 2020s. It's impossible. Books written in other ages contain ideas and attitudes and language that may seem strange, outdated, and even offensive in today's world. Their very strangeness and capacity to offend, however, can be invigorating and challenging. They may shake us out of the complacency that insists that things can only get better, or that we would never have behaved as those people did back then. And it should be no surprise that that same strangeness, the same potential to invigorate and challenge and, yes, offend, also exists in the sheer variety of contemporary writing today. That's how literature works across time, cultures, classes, and countries. It shows us other ways of thinking, acting, and being. 21 years ago, a book of mine, Joseph Knight, was the Saltire Society Book of the Year. It's a novel, but based on the true story of an enslaved African man who won his freedom at the Court of Session here in Edinburgh in 1778. I sometimes wonder if I had stumbled on that story more recently, whether I would have decided that it was not my business to tell it. Or if I had written it now, as I wrote it then, I wonder if a charge of cultural or historical appropriation would have been levelled against it. This story does not belong to you. I hope I would have had the courage to write it anyway. Even in the early 2000s, when I was doing the research for that book, I knew I was on ground that had to be trodden with care and consideration. I was a bit scared, to be honest, hold on to that thought, but I had to find my way in and then tell the story as best I could. In any case, I wasn't the first to tell it. The great poet Douglas Dunn had told it in his way in the 1980s as a radio play, and May Sumbanyambi has told it again as a stage play in the 2020s. It's true, of course, that the story doesn't belong to any of us. It belongs to Joseph Knight, but to each of us it demanded that it be retold. so we retold it. This year is the 200th anniversary of the publication of James Hogg's Private Memoirs and Confessions of a Justified Sinner. This extraordinary novel is now recognised as a masterpiece, a part of the canon of Scottish literature, and it was quite rightly celebrated at this year's Edinburgh International Book Festival. But it wasn't always like that. For about 150 years, it was virtually unread. It made almost no impression and had no great influence on any other writer except Robert Louis Stevenson, whose Jekyll and Hyde took something from it. Yet today, no serious writer or reader in search of a Scottish literary tradition can ignore it. James Hogg's Confessions, for all that it's about early 18th century religious fanaticism, deals with matters with which we are all too familiar in our own times. Robert Ringham, the sinner, exhibits some of the symptoms of certain kinds of mental illness, but he could equally be behaving like somebody who has been drawn into a bubble, a cult, or a camp in which his views are reinforced by others who think, or appear to think, as he does. From a distance of 2 centuries, James Hogg shines a harsh light on our modern convictions, denunciations, obsessions, and confusions. We live in an age of cultural and political tribalism, of moral point scoring and self-serving virtuousness, and sometimes just bragging rights with no ethical basis at all. You might wonder who I'm talking about there. Exacerbated by the speed and ease of judgment of social media. I doubt whether human nature has changed much since Hogg's day, but electronic technology has enabled us to be vicious and mob-like, things he describes in the Confessions, without even having to leave our desks and computers, or perhaps because we don't have to, and with little fear of consequence either. We're learning anew, however, that nothing comes without consequence, and we may yet discover that technology can turn against and devour its human operators. The grievous condition, as I see it, of our present public discourse is sometimes blamed on identity politics, but I think that's far too simplistic. Your identity, your sense of who you are, is constructed out of a complex mixture of inheritance, upbringing, emotional growth, and personal experience, in conjunction with how you navigate the wider world, the various communities of family, village, city, language, country, culture, in which you also have to exist. This, at least in part, is what literature is about, the recognition and understanding of identities, both individual and communal, the challenges people face, and the compromises they often have to make. On an occasion like this, then, a celebration of literature, it's maybe worth pausing to reflect on what it is we're celebrating. Discourse, public discourse, doesn't have to be conducted as if we were participants in the crassest of reality TV shows. Literature, like other art forms, but in its own unique way, builds an intimate, subtle relationship between the creator and the recipient. When we read alone a novel or a poem or an essay, we're actually engaging in a conversation. This conversation is usually with somebody we've never met and never will meet, who may speak a different language and have a very different cultural background, and who may even have been dead for centuries. That person has written something. Let's say they've written a collection of poems or a novel. You reach for it on a shelf in your home or in a bookshop or in the library. You open the book, and the book, which when closed was asleep, wakes up. You start to decipher the lines and dots of the print, and as you do so, the author starts to speak to you inside your head. And you, inside your head, have to go to work in order to understand the next sentence, the next thought, the next image, the next thing that happens. It's a two-way process. What you bring to the book Your intellect, your imagination, your baggage of emotions and experience, your identity is as necessary to the process as what the author brought to it. It's a negotiation, and a different one for every reader, and even a different one for you if you read the same book 5 or 45 years later. Without you, the book is dormant. In your hands, the book is alive. But then Robert Louis Stevenson wrote, "Books are good enough in their own way, but they're a mighty bloodless substitute for life." What did he mean? I don't think he was saying, forget reading, it's a waste of time. I think he was saying, what is reading without living? And the flip side of that question is, what is living without reading? And then there's the book itself, this object that you hold in your hands when you read. Not only is the technology that made it lasted nearly 600 years, but a physical book may last that long, requiring no power source other than natural light for it to function. I've got many books on my shelves that are far, far older than I am. Guard a book from fire and water, and it will outlast us all, and all our opinions. So that's what we should celebrate when we celebrate literature. We should celebrate that it engages us in that kind of discourse, takes us across time and space to explore identities that are not ours, enables us to argue and disagree with them, but also to learn from them, not to cancel them, to respect them where respect is due, not resent them, to commune with the dead and the distant, as well as with those we think or are told are of our tribe. We should be grateful for literature's ability to open our minds to the possibility that we may be mistaken, that our opinions may be honestly held but ill-informed, that doubt may be more productive than certainty. Do not misunderstand me. Moral outrage is sometimes the only available reaction to appalling events and opinions, and we've seen plenty of evidence of that in recent times. Sometimes passionate defense or attack are absolutely natural and necessary. But while it's noble and brave to stand up for a principle, the distinction between a principle and a prejudice is not always clear, and it may sometimes be nobler and braver and harder to say, I don't know. The Nobel Prize winner Toni Morrison once said, "People say to write what you know. I'm here to tell you no one wants to read that because you don't know anything. So write about something you don't know, and don't be scared, ever." I agree with all of that, but I do think it is sometimes good to be a bit scared and then to take a deep breath and go forward into whatever it is that demands to be told. Thanks for that. Listen to that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Hamish. James, you're going to stay with us now for the next award, and it is to present the Fiction Book of the Year. This is our penultimate award of the night, and I'm very pleased, James, you're going to tell us a wee bit about why fiction matters so much.
Yeah, thanks. I'll try not to repeat what I've just said, but thinking specifically about fiction, our world, our human world, it's constructed out of stories. And fiction, which is one of the great branches of literature, is a highly sophisticated way of telling stories. Fiction tells us who we are, and vitally it tells us about people whose experiences and feelings we might otherwise never know. Fiction is a pack of lies that can tell us truths we might not otherwise see. Fiction expands our capacity to empathize. And a work of fiction, as I've just said, once written and published, exists not just for now, but for all time. And then there's the impact that Scottish fiction has had over centuries, not just on ourselves and our own country and our own culture, but on the whole world. It's really been quite an enormous impact. Think of characters like Ivanhoe, Long John Silver, Dr. Jekyll, and of course Mr. Hyde. Peter Pan, whose first appearance was in a novel. Sherlock Holmes, Jean Brodie, all created by authors from Scotland. Mark Twain even blamed the American Civil War on the influence of Sir Walter Scott, although as the war happened 30 years after Scott's death, I think that was being a bit harsh. Today, the printed, read form of fiction that we're celebrating tonight has to compete with ever more technologically impressive ways of telling stories through film and television and gaming. It's interesting that one of the biggest growth areas in fiction sales recently has been audiobooks, which in a way links the listeners back to the oral tradition, which is such a fundamental part of this country's culture. So fiction is always on the move, always experimenting and changing, and yet it's also always drawn back to basics. What is this about? Who is it about? Why is this happening to them? Who cares? And what happens next? Well, what happens next is that we're going to watch a short video about the Saltire Fiction Book of the Year. So I'll shut up for a minute.
Study for Obedience, Sarah Bernstein. A woman moves from the place of her birth to a remote northern country to be housekeeper to her brother. This haunting book places a burden on the reader through a carefully and interestingly constructed narrative. What Doesn't Kill Us, A.J. Close. Set in Leeds and Bradford and based on the Yorkshire Ripper case, this book is evocative and enraging, with brilliant characterisation, humour and a sense of tension from the ever-present threat of violence. Clear, Cerys Davis. Set against the backdrop of the Highland clearances, this beautifully written and intriguing book explores ideas of communication with and beyond words as the unexpected intimate relationship at its heart unfolds. Lost People, Margaret Elphinston. A slim novella set in a dystopian future and an affecting, unpretentious and resonant piece of writing. The garden as a place of growth is evocative, touching and relevant. Hazardous Spirits, Anbara Salam. A Gothic literary mystery set in the 1920s and a solemn, quiet and fascinating study of a man falling apart.
Wow. Well, list. Right. I'm going to put this down again. This is very exciting. My fingers are shaking. I have no idea. The winner of this year's Saltire Fiction Award is A.J. Close for What Doesn't Kill Us.
I wish I'd written a speech. I was a bit chilly already, but now I've got complete goosepimples. It is amazing, an amazing honour. I'm really, really pleased. There are some people I have to thank, inevitably. My outgoing editor, Judy Moyer, who's taking a very, very well-deserved retirement, and my new editor, Lisa Heighton, who I hope will be my, not editor, agent. You can see I'm completely flummoxed by this. Agents I'm talking about, right. and my publisher, Sarah Hunt, my fabulous publisher, Sarah Hunt. So to all of them, a very big thank you. And not mainly, but also to the women of Leeds and Bradford who inspired the book I wrote, which is set against the backdrop of the Yorkshire Ripper, but is mainly concerned with a group of real-life feminists who I traduced in various fictional forms. And all I want to say is I've called myself a feminist for 50 years, but really it was researching this book and talking to these women that reminded me what it meant to be a feminist. And finally, I want to say a thanks to my partner, Jim Melvin, who maybe regretted some of my new feminist fervour, but who was there all the same. So that's all I've got to say.
Give it a big cheer. AJ Close, congratulations. Well, congratulations again, AJ. Thank you. Hamish, thank you. James, for that. Goodness. But our final award, are we, I think? And we now have a very important award to bestow. Every year, the winners of fiction, non-fiction, poetry, and first book categories are considered for Book of the Year. Now, to remind you, and I want you to give them a big cheer as I announce these, to remind you, these are the books in contention. Who Doesn't Kill Us by A.J. Close. Thunderclap by Laura Cumming. Ruin Blossom by John Burnside. And Night Train to Odessa by Jen Stout. Now, to speak to this year's Book of the Year, I'm going to welcome somebody to the stage. Now, we've got a few things in common. Firstly, we're both Gaelic speakers, but there's something else going on in Edinburgh tonight. It is the list's Hot Scottish 100. And unbelievably, me and this wonderful lady, who is the director of the Saltires Society, are on that list tonight. I am really worried we're 99 and 100, but we're still on the list. So please welcome one of the hottest women in Scotland, director of the Saltires Society, Mary Kidd.
Míle tainge Kenya. Thank you very much, Kenya. That's one of the more embarrassing moments of my life. Good evening, everybody. I hope you've had a wonderful evening. I am here to make the award of the Book of the Year. And as you have heard this evening, the Saltire Society marks its 90th birthday in 2026. 8 decades and counting, which is a long time. And in that time, the Society's focus has changed and evolved in response to challenges and developments in the external environment. Tonight's event is part of one of our longest running programmes, but there have been many, many more. The Society has championed the languages of Scotland when it seemed that Scottish society perhaps no longer appreciated these precious perspectives on the world and unique repositories of our history. It has sought to encourage the evolution of enlightened, environmentally and socially informed policy by highlighting examples of best practice across the country through its housing awards and associated archive. It has fought against the loss of music in schools, recognising that schools are many children's only access to music making, and particularly the musical traditions of Scotland. But one of the challenges for an organisation with long heritage, and one might also say a Johnny-come-lately director in post only around 6 months, is that the heritage, it's almost impossible to hold it in one person's mind. And much as we would love to, our people don't know the full detail of our programmes through time. And so we were delighted to have the chance to dig into our archives when our shortlist was announced, because Laura Cumming wrote on Twitter that we had honoured her father, the artist James Cumming, with an award. It was made in 1988 for his mural, The Community, a Festival of Time, in the Lowport Centre in Linlithgow. Public art then being a particular interest of the society. And I think for many of you that will conjure up a time, a wonderful time in Scottish life, when the power of art in creating, connecting and inspiring communities led to the making of great work by great artists in the new towns and beyond. We were delighted to see that the Lowport Centre has been listed just this year by Historic Environment Scotland, in no small part due to the importance of the mural. The judges for the Book Awards do not consider the history of the Saltires Society, of course, in making their decisions. They engage with the book only. Of the Book of the Year 2024, they said, "This is a book about masterpieces, and it is in its own right a masterwork, written by a writer at the height of her powers. It has erudition, it has heart, and it has wonderful readability. It is a book for our time, reminding us in our straitened and often disconnected world why art matters and why the physical spaces that hold art matter. It is also a book to stand for the ages, and its author amply deserves her place in the roll call of writers recognised by this prize. Scotland's Book of the Year 2024 is Thunderclap by Laura Cumming. Now, as you know, Laura is unable to be with us this evening, and by the wonders of modern technology will join us on the screen. I'm also going to invite Lee Randall to join us on stage. Lee has an opportunity to present Laura with her award in person very soon, and so I am going to hand the award to Lee, who is going to safekeep it for Laura, and we are now going to hear from Laura.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We
You
can hear you.
me. Oh, I feel the honour of this so keenly. Thank you so much, especially as the daughter of Scotland's capital city. Anyone growing up in Edinburgh with the slightest love of literature feels the presence of so many singular and magnificent writers. For me, right back to Boswell and Burns, Scott and Hogg and Stevenson, Spark and onwards to Kelman and Gray. I was taught Scottish poetry at school, specifically Sorley MacLean and Edwin Muir, and later John Burnside by a Scottish writer. And there was always the particular inflection of the language around me, so precise, so eloquent. Although I do have to write in English, alas, there are words in this book and meanings that exist only in the tongue of Scotland. Glisk, for instance, a glimpse of something fleetingly bright for me this occasion. A word my Shetland art teacher used, and which I noticed the Dutch, in fact, have adopted. The painting to which I apply it in the book is the huge and haunting Jacob van Ruysdael Dutch landscape in the National Gallery on the Mound. The word and the image both are part of my growing up in this city, and they are part of me, of everything that I am. Jim talked earlier about the relationship between living and reading, and for me, the relationship also extends into art. I don't see art as being in any way separate from life. It is like breath or it's like food. It is there for everybody. I don't see the two as separate. And I thought I would just, if I may, just read a tiny bit in homage to my family. From the book. We see pictures in time and place and we can't really see them in any other way. They're fragments of our existence. As you know, sometimes as unremarkable as rain or as powerful, as potent as a thunderclap, hence the title of the book. And whatever we see is part of who we are, and we see with everything that we are. So we're seeing art as we see everything else. It's in the thicket of our life, it's in the forest of our lives, whatever we're thinking we bring to it. And this is the little paragraph for tonight. There's no work of art so transcendent that it is not susceptible to our individuality either, or to our human frailty. I'm particularly thinking of things like headaches and so on in a gallery. In the last weeks before she gave birth to my brother, my mother couldn't look at any paintings standing up. A constant visitor to the National Gallery in Edinburgh, where we lived, she became powerfully acquainted with the Dutch art in one particular room because it had seats of exactly the right height. Her passion for those paintings turned them into landmarks, and so they would become for us too. A pair of Dutch pictures was a Sunday destination, up from the Firth of Forth to the Mound on the number 23 bus. Its windows steamed to silver pages for drawing. Its seats a dark red vinyl that sucked at the back of your thighs. The seats in the gallery were the same colour, but in superior polished leather. I cannot separate that colour or those seats from my love of Dutch art. I think the city has been effectively for me a kind of treasury. I studied art history in the Central Library on George IV Bridge for my Hires, and I studied literature at the National Library of Scotland opposite, and my first sense of art comes entirely from that building on the Mound and also from the Scottish National Gallery of Modern Art, which was in those days, I'm sure many of you will remember, in beautiful Inverleith House, alas no more. I also got it from seeing wild festival shows, many of them at the College of Art as well when I was a child. So this city really is a treasury for me, and also this country. So that to receive this award from you has a river of meaning for me. I was thinking probably the Firth of Forth where we lived. I am deeply, deeply grateful to the judges for this profoundly moving honour. In this, they have joined me, not just to my city, to my country and its writers, but also to someone who won the Saltire so many years ago before me. In this award, they have here tonight reunited me with my father. Thank you.
Thank you so, so much, Laura. Thank you so, so much. Congratulations. Keep the applause going for Lee and Mary. Thank you so much. I will join you. You go there. No, you go there. Thank you so much. Give them a big cheer. Thank you. Thank you, Mary. And congratulations to Laura as well. Book of the Year. We've finally learned what is the 2024 Book of the Year. Now, all that remains from me is to thank everyone who made this process possible. Firstly, I would ask you to join me in thanking the judges who took so much care in selecting the long lists, short lists, and tonight's winners. Their names are on the screen now, and many of them are in the room with us tonight. So give them a big cheer. Secondly, I would like to ask you to thank tonight's overarching hosts, the Saltires Society, our first book category sponsor, Creative Scotland, and our wonderful book sales partner, Waterstones. I also want to thank our presenters, speakers, and performers tonight that have made such a brilliant evening, and we thank them for their time and talent as well. Now, I just want to make sure you all know that, when you are an author, you pour your heart and soul into whatever genre of book that you have. And to have those books is so, so important. And Waterstones are outside, well, not outside, just over there, with all the titles on the shortlists. And we do hope you will take a book home with you tonight. Perhaps, as I said, signed by the author. And don't forget those cookbooks. But please do make your way to the room opposite, where we hope you'll be able to stay with us and raise a glass to celebrate what a fantastic night. It's been a great pleasure to guide you through the proceedings tonight. I'm quite humbled to be in a room of such talent. But last but not least, please join me once again in congratulating all the winners of the Saltires, Scotland's Book Awards 2024. Oh, hello, Mary.
Now, Conor said last of all, but could I please ask you to join me in saying an enormous thanks to Conor for the kindest hosting. Thank you, Míle Tainch.
Well, on that, Mary, if anybody would like to buy me a dram, I'll have a Jura 18-year-old. But Míle Tainch a Harshan, thank you and good night.